Good evening. This is the second night of our first Honolulu class. In this meditation, there was a distinct feeling as if a weight had dropped off of my shoulders. It was as if there were an actual physical release. And I thought of the statement, the government is on his shoulders. Now think, if he performeth that which is given me to do, then the government is upon his shoulder. Now at this point, I ask you to think with me on the word he. He performeth that which is given me to do, or the word his. The government is on his shoulders. From the use of the word he and his, you might gather that there is a you and a he. You might gather that there is a God and a you, and that God is something separate and apart from your own being. But right here I caution you to remember that that error has brought upon this world every war, every sin, every disease, every bit of lack and limitation that has ever existed. The belief that there is a he separate and apart from your own being. Now last night, the subject was brought out of the infinite nature of God, the nature of God as infinite being, as infinite power. And that too, for a moment, might mislead those who are not deep students to believe that in speaking of the infinite nature of God, that we are not speaking of the infinite nature of you. And right here, I am going to bring the two together so that you will remember last night's lesson, that I and the Father are one, not two. Son, thou art ever with me in oneness, I in you and you in me. Should we ever forget that I and the Father are one, we risk the loss of our spiritual demonstration. Our human demonstration may be fine. Our sense of human health and human strength and human wealth may be wonderful. I do not have to remind you that it is never permanent. Only as we gain the spiritual sense of life, the spiritual sense of business, the spiritual sense of family, the spiritual sense of existence, do we come into not only infinite good, but eternal good, good eternally ours, and that comes only in this wise. When you remember that I of my own self can do nothing, but that this Spirit of God in me, the Spirit of God which really is my being, the Spirit of God, which really is the substance and the law and the cause of my being, when we realize that the power belongs to it manifesting or expressing itself as our individual being, in and through our individual being, only then do we come to an understanding of the infinite nature of your individual being. You are infinite because God is infinite, and because God is the life of your being, and the only life you have. Your life is infinite, immortal, and eternal. Since God is the universal mind or intelligence, God is your individual mind or intelligence, and therefore the nature of your intelligence is infinity itself. The nature of your existence is immortality, eternality, infinite, harmonious good. Only by virtue of the fact that God is your being can we say, you are infinite, you are eternal, you are immortal. Not in and of yourself separate and apart from me, not in and of yourself separate and apart from God, but because God is the life and substance of your being. Infinity is the quantity and the quality of your being. And so, when we say, He performeth that which is given me to do, we are not speaking of a power or a being separate from our own, but we are speaking of that presence and that power which is the very center, the very cause, the very essence of our own being. Nobody thinks it wrong to believe that they are 100% honest or 100% moral. No more should they think it wrong to believe that they are 100% intelligent and 100% immortal and eternal, since the same source that gives them their goodness, their virtue, their morality, gives them their intelligence, their life, their good. It is all one. God is one. And that one is the essence, substance, reality, cause of your and my being. We make a big jump out of Orthodox religion and out of all metaphysical systems in the absolute declaration of God as the total and complete substance, essence, law of our being, and therefore of ourselves as God being. That is the reason that last night I said in imagining ourselves out on that desert, imagine yourself entirely away from any aid, so that ultimately you could come to the realization of God's aid. Now, where would you get that God's aid, since there you are completely alone, without the benefit of clergy, on the desert? Where would you get that God's aid? How would you come into the benefits of God's presence out there, except for one thing, that right where you are, God is in that oneness of being. This must be repeated over and over and over again until it becomes so embedded within our being, within our consciousness, that never are we tempted to look out here for our good. First of all, that we may never be tempted to look for some God separate and apart from our own being, and then secondly, that we should never look to man whose breath is in his nostril, not even look to princes for our good, but look rather to this center, to this essence that is within our own being. The whole kingdom of God is within you, and the more you learn to direct your attention there, the more you will find that the He that performeth that which is given you to do, that He is in the midst of you, is in fact the activity of truth in your consciousness. Should you call upon me for help, for healing, for supply, for employment, for any activity of human experience, you know as well as I that you would not be expecting it of Joel, you would not be expecting it of something that I had read in a book or something that I had heard somewhere. You would be expecting that help from the Spirit of God, which is the reality of my being, the realized reality of my being. And you could look and find the answer to any problem, to any phase of existence, in the spiritual nature of my consciousness. But this truth, being universal, is the truth about you. And the only reason that you would be looking to me or to some other practitioner or teacher would be your recognition of the fact that we had come into a greater realization of our God being than you have attained at this moment. Not that we possess more. Oh no. Know ye not? Ye are children of God. And if children, then heirs. And if heirs, joint heirs with Christ and God. That is the truth about you. What counts now is the degree of your realization of it. If you can realize that here and now, where I am, all of the Godhead is pouring itself through as spiritual power, as intelligence, wisdom, guidance, protection, direction, then you will know that this is the attainment that you must achieve. Since this truth is universally true. The great Master gave us that lesson. The greater works would we do. Why? Well, he said that it was the Father within him that did the works, but in speaking of the Father within him, he said, your Father and my Father. For the same Father that dwells in him dwells in us. Again, in our experience of Peter and John raising the man at the temple gate beautiful, and the Hebrews marveling, we have Peter replying, why marvel ye, men of Israel? As if we of our own selves had raised this man, had healed this man. It was the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob that did this. And the same Spirit that raised up Jesus Christ from the dead will quicken also your mortal bodies. Ah, yes. The Spirit of God that raised up Jesus Christ from the dead, where is it? In Peter and in John. Where is it? In you and in me. And so, from the first moment that you give conscious recognition to this presence and power within you, it begins to find outlet into experience. Browning has given us that poem, "The truth is within ourselves." If we do not take it in, we open out a way whence its splendor may escape. And so it is. All spiritual power, all wisdom, all intelligence, all harmony, all healing grace is within you and within me, and we do not add it to ourselves. We make way for it to come out into expression. You will see how the meditation does that for us as we go along. Just as this first meditation this evening gave me that sense of release as a weight dropping from my shoulder, as if the responsibility had been placed elsewhere and it was carrying it. And of course what I felt was only a reflection of what was taking place in this room. There must have been some of you who felt that sense of release in the meditation, as if a weight had dropped away. Now we meditate again. Now we have said that the nature of God is I. But that I that dwells in the midst of us, that I which we recognize to be our own being. When you look here at me, you know that you do not see me. You see my body. I am looking out of these eyes at you, just as you are looking out of your eyes at me. I can't see you. I can see your eyes. I can see your head. I can see your body, but I can't see you. You're sitting back there and looking through those eyes. That's I. That's the real I, not the egotistical I that believes a human being has all power, that a human being is God. No, not that I, but that gentle I that sits back there and looks out. That I we have found to be God. And it is in that I that the infinity of your being is. this is what unites us. This is what brings us in union and oneness with all mankind, so that we come to the realization now that we have no interest contrary to the interest of any individual. No individual has an interest contrary to ours. Let us acknowledge for the moment that in the human picture that does not seem to be true. Let us for a moment ignore the human picture so that we can look out only from the spiritual scene and find this, that since it is true that there is but one creative principle, and that principle God, and that it has created us in its image and likeness, that is, it is just as much the law of my being as yours, it is as much my life and my love as yours, that we are one in that relationship. Now, in our human experience, because we have been brought up, first of all, in such stupidities as my country, right or wrong, my country, and more stupidities like my church, and my church the only right one, and all the rest are wrong. And of course, all of us are going to heaven, but everybody else is going to hell. All of these teachings have tended to set up a separation between us so that we have developed interests of our own, separate and apart from that of the world at large. Now you come back into the mastership of the creative principle and learn that we are one, and that in that oneness the lion and the lamb can lie down together. Now we demonstrate that practically through this realization of the word I. Once you catch the first perception that the I of me is the I of you, then you will see why we have no interest apart from each other, but that every experience of ours works for the good of each other. Even on the human plane, the student of modern history would surely know that there would be none of these wars and conflicts if it could only be made clear that at the base of each of us is the one God, the one Christ, the one soul, and the one Spirit. If it could be made clear that what benefits one benefits another because of this oneness. Now, this has been proven spiritually in the experience of what we call spiritual healing. You come to me or another practitioner and you ask for help. I may be right in your presence, or I may be 3,000 miles away from you. And you've asked for help by cable or by letter. And I sit quietly in the realization of my oneness with God. I sit quietly and realize God as the only law, the only life, as the only activity going on. I realize these truths until finally a deep feeling wells up in me of the divine presence, or that release I spoke of a moment ago, in which a weight drops away from me, and then the next thing I get word from you, I feel better, or I am better, or I am healed. Now, that could only take place because of our oneness. Whatever was taking place in my consciousness was automatically taking place in your consciousness. If in our meditation I am lifted up and you feel yourself lifted up, it is only because of that same oneness. We have in Matthew these passages. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and ye came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered, and fed thee? Or thirsty, and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger, and took thee in? Or naked, and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick, or in prison, and came unto thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily, I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me. In this, you see that what we do to or for each other, we do to and for the Christ, that is the Spirit of God in us, so that we do not do it for each other as separate people, as if we were just a human beggar on the street receiving a handout. But even when we give unto the beggar on the street, we do it in the realization that I'm not doing it unto you, I'm doing it unto the Father, the Son, the Christ, the reality or truth of your being, and in doing it unto you, I am doing it unto all mankind, and I am doing it unto the Christ, the brotherhood of our being. Now, it must become clear that the infinite nature of our being can only come because of the presence within us of this very spiritual Son or child of God, which we in reality are. And it is in that spiritual oneness that we find our peace with each other. You will experiment with this until you see how true it is. You will do it by going into your market and realizing that everyone there is this one that you are, that the same life animates them, the same soul, the same love, the same joy, the same peace, the same desire for good. In other words, that the same God sits enthroned within them. Many of them may at the moment not be conscious of all this, but you are conscious of it. You are aware of this divine presence within their being, and then you watch their response to you. In the business world, the same way. Go out into the business world, whether it's among your business people, your employees, your employers, or whether it is among competitors, or whether, as we have so much occasion to read about today, in this management and labor relationship, maintain for a little while this attitude of recognition that I am you, that my interest is your interest, that your interest is mine, since the one life animates our being, the one soul, the one Spirit of God, and that anything we do for each other, we are doing really for the principle that binds us together. And watch the difference in your business relationship, in your tradespeople relationship, in your community relationship. Ultimately, this will be in national and international relationships, since it all depends on an individual starting it. One with God is a majority. It has never failed to work. It has never failed to bring forth rich fruitage. The moment that we lay down our human sense of separateness, and as I used the illustration the other night of the tree, imagine right now a tree, trunk and branches. And now in your mind's eye, remove the trunk of the tree. And what do you have left? A lot of disconnected branches, each separate from the other, not one in a position to help the other or receive help from another, each one leading some kind of a separate existence that is very precarious. But now place back the trunk of that tree and see the oneness of the whole. See the unity. You will soon see that what affects the roots affects the tree, that what affects one branch affects all branches. You will soon see that there must be a complete unity in order for there to be complete harmony. Now, so with us. The harmony of our existence in this room is dependent on only one thing. We have no interest apart from each other. And we recognize it, and we realize it, because we realize that we are here only for one purpose, and that purpose is the unfolding of truth in our consciousness. Now, carry this out of this room and realize that everyone on earth is on earth but for one purpose, and that purpose is to show forth the glory of God. Every individual on earth is to show forth the harmony of God, the harmony of divinity, the fullness of it all. And then in that realization, you will find also that you are brought into contact only with those who are there as a blessing to you, as you are a blessing unto them. Now, all of this can only come about when you make the transition I am about to unfold to you. From this moment, give up the sense, the belief, that good must or can come to you. Give up the desire for good to come to you, and make the transition to the realization, since infinity is the nature of your being, God is the reality of your being, that all good must flow out from you to the world. Make the transition that not only came to Jesus but has come to every master, that I do not need to be fed or clothed or housed, but I can feed 5,000, 4,000, 7,000. I can heal multitudes. I can bless. I can forgive. Even the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive. Why? The virtue of the God, which is the essence of my being. That God being pours itself out in infinite nature unto all who do not yet know their true identity. Jesus knew that all of these people were equally children of God. That was why he rebuked them. He had fed them one day, fed the multitudes with a few loaves and fishes, multiplied. And the very next day they followed him across the lake and wanted to be fed again. And he said, "What came you here for? I fed you yesterday." Ah, yes. They thought that his purpose was just to go around feeding them. Oh no, the Master never came to earth to feed mankind, but to show them the principle of infinite and abundant supply. That was why he said to them at the end, "If I go not away, the Comforter will not come to you." If I keep on feeding you, if I keep on healing you, you will never realize the infinite nature of your own being. So from the moment that you make the conscious recognition of God as the central theme of your life, and the realization that that God can pour itself through you to this world, from that moment on you have left material sense behind, and you have come into a measure at least of spiritual realization and spiritual demonstration. Discord, inharmony of every nature comes from the belief of finiteness, the belief that you are finite, that you are something less than that place through which God is pouring itself. All enmity, all jealousy, envy, hatred, malice is based on the belief of a separate existence. All harmony, justice, peace comes through the realization of one infinite being, infinitely expressing itself as you and as me. Now for a moment, take into meditation with you this idea of the Godhead pouring itself through you to this world, and you being somewhat in the nature of Jesus, not asking for demonstration for yourself, but being perfectly willing to be called upon by 4,000, 5,000, 7,000, and women and children besides. I'll rest for a few moments. Now you understand that since God is the essence of your being, that you are not to reach outside of yourself, even mentally. And so we are going to take up the subject of treatment, so that we will be enabled to develop, through the use of treatment, the spiritual consciousness that is the healing agency in our work. You do not reach out mentally to give a treatment to your patient. Since you realize the infinite nature of your being, your treatment is going to be a contemplation that takes place within you. It is almost as if it were a two-way conversation, but it takes place between you and you. We will assume for the moment that you have asked me for help, and I am going to give you a treatment, except, of course, that the treatment is not going to be directed to you. Rather, it is going to be about you. It is all going to take place in my consciousness, but about you and for you, and yet with no thought of you. Now let's watch this in action. You have asked for help, and I have said, we'll call this a call for help for illness. And in this particular case, you haven't told me what was wrong, what part of your body was affected, and I haven't asked you. I'm really not interested. You won't be either, as you treat in accord with this work. Although there are times when it is helpful to know it, or what the sickness seems to be, or what seems to be affected, and I'll come to that in another treatment. But at this moment, you have asked for help. You're not well. You have not told me what or where, but I have promised to give you that help. I sit back quietly, and my first thought is the word God. The reason the first word that comes to me is God is that since God is infinite and nothing exists outside of that infinity, everything that is taking place must be taking place within the range of that infinite being. Everything that is taking place must be taking place in, through, as that infinite being. And so let us find what is the nature of that being that we call God. We find first that God is life. God is therefore infinite life, eternal life, and immortal life, and God is the life of this patient. If God is the life of this patient, that life is already eternal and immortal. Nothing that we could do could improve it. As a matter of fact, not even God could improve that life, since that life is its own eternal and immortal being. God is law. And this being truth, God being infinite law, the only law under this so-called patient, under this so-called person, must be the law of God, and that's the only law operating. There's no law there of matter. There's no law of weather. There's no law of climate. There's no law of food. There's only one law operating, and that's a spiritual law. Since God is spirit, and God is law, God is spiritual law, God being infinite, there is only one law in operation. Well, of course, the entire claim of sickness is one of a claim of a sick body or a sick mind. But here we have God as infinite substance, the creative principle of the universe that created this universe out of its own being. The Word was made flesh. The Word was made flesh. All flesh is formed of the Word, and the Word is God. Therefore, the body is the perfect Word of God, made flesh, made manifest, expressed. And this body then, being God-governed and formed of the essence and substance of God, can embody only the activities, only the harmonies, grace, joys, beauties of God. Nothing foreign to God could enter, defile, or make lie. Why? The infinity of God makes it impossible for anything but God and God's creation to exist. You will remember right here, perhaps, the first chapter of Genesis. God made all that was made. God looked at all that he made and found that it was good. Anything God didn't make wasn't made. For all that God made is good. Whatever it is that is claiming operation in the human mind or body as sin, disease, error of any nature, inaction, overaction, loss of action, must be a part of that which has no real existence. Cannot be a part of God, therefore cannot be a part of the infinity of God, which is the infinity of your and my individual being. You see how this whole treatment is taking place within me. It is a complete argument as to the infinite nature of God's goodness and of the absolute unreality, impossibility, if you like that word, of anything other than the activity and presence and substance and law of God being with us, or our patient. Through this argument going on within ourselves, we lift ourselves above the realm of appearances. We lift ourselves above the realm of what we call human discords. And it is at that moment that we have brought our argument to a close. We have thought within ourselves of every possible thing that concerns the nature of God, and we have reminded ourselves of the impossibility of any real presence or power except it be of God. And having done that, we now come to this place in our treatment where we pause and wait for the Word of God or presence or power of God to make itself felt in us. That is where our treatment rises into the realm of spiritual healing. Up to this point, we have not been engaged in spiritual healing. We have really been engaged in a preparatory step lifting ourselves above the beliefs of the world, lifting ourselves above the appearances of discords that present themselves to us, and prepare ourselves now to be receptive to the very Spirit of God itself. And so, having come to that point, we now wait with listening ear in that same attitude of receptivity that we have held in meditation. And as we do, maybe a short while, maybe a long while, sometimes has to be repeated 2, 3, 4, 10 times. But ultimately, there comes this feeling of the presence, this realization of God, or this falling away of responsibility, this weight dropping away, and a sense of freedom, and then with it comes the realization the healing has taken place. Now, in every one of my writings, you will find a chapter on the subject of treatment. Whether you have one of those books or more, or all, take the subject treatment for study and make yourself as familiar as possible with the subject of treatment, so that it becomes completely automatic, the giving of a treatment, until it becomes second nature, not to reach out and try to heal somebody over here, but to sit quietly here and know the truth about somebody over here who is already the child of God, already made in the image and likeness of God, already showing forth the presence and the power and the harmonies of God's being. When you are called upon for help, your responsibility is not toward that patient. Your responsibility is toward your realization of the truth, because the moment you attain it, your patient will feel the response. You will have proof of that throughout this week in the meditations as you feel the power of my meditation, as you feel the quiet and peace of my meditation settle upon you, so you will know in the same way that a realization of the spiritual nature of God and man in my consciousness reflects itself in health and harmony and painlessness in your body, since we are one. Now for a moment let us meditate and let it settle within us, this idea of treatment. You will not remember what I said tonight. You will rather read and catch the principle of this treatment. If we had found God to be infinite in nature and somehow left you over here, we would have done nothing for toward bringing you into the harmony of God's being. And so you will remember that only as we establish the infinite nature of God's being as individual being, do we complete this treatment or this realization that brings the harmony into your experience. Remember, 2 points here. First, the recognition, which we had last night, of the infinite nature of God's being, of the spiritual nature, of the infinity and omnipresence of God's being. But tonight, we are bringing about a union in which the infinite being called God is really the infinity of your being. One, indestructible.